The most important thing, if I can recommend, it broke the next day. I highly recommend negotiating. I got my makeup done for free. The third red flag that I would look out for, photographer, makeup artist. When I saw that, I did not know what to do. The delivery a couple of days late, I did for the first few months. Specific experiences with I could not go out looking like that. When that happened, I lost it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adia, and if you are a 2025 bride or groom, or if you have your wedding coming up in just a couple of years, you have come to the right place, because today we are gonna talk all about planning an Indian wedding, especially if you're someone who doesn't reside in India. This video is a little different content than what I usually post, but it's been 6 months since our Indian wedding, and I thought I'll share all the learnings that I had during that process, because trust me, there are so many. And when I was planning for my wedding, for the most part, I was in Toronto, and it was very overwhelming and challenging to plan everything. There are so many aspects. You know how overwhelming Indian weddings can be. So I thought I'll create this video, which is more of a comprehensive planning guide, things to know, mistakes that I made and I would like you to avoid. So without further ado, let's get into it. A little bit about my background is Ashwin, my husband, and I got married in Phoenix, Arizona. About 5 years ago, I was out of law school. We had 2 friends as witnesses and my brother-in-law. I got a gown for myself from David's Bridal. I got my makeup done for free at Sephora after I purchased $50 worth of stuff, and my husband wore an old pink shirt of his with a blazer. It was held in the backyard of the officiant, and we had a little dinner in an Indian restaurant. So that was my wedding 5 years ago, and it was a really low-key civil elopement ceremony that happened. And to be honest with you, I was kind of bummed about the fact that I could not have a traditional Indian wedding. But after my grandfather passed away in 2021, and because it's been so long living together as a married couple, I just did not see a point in having a celebration per se. But I am the oldest kid in my family among my siblings and cousins, so my family, my parents, really wanted to have a celebration and a traditional Indian wedding. So last year we decided to have a wedding, and that happened this year in 2025 in the month of January. So that's a little bit of background story about us. Coming back to the wedding, the first thing that we did the moment we decided to have the wedding was set an intention, a budget, and our priorities. What I mean by that is to really understand whether I want to have a big fat Indian wedding with all the extravagance, or a small 50 or under 100 people gathering, and based on that decide on a budget, and based on that decide on what are some of the priorities. I was very clear that I did not want my wedding to be a financial burden on us or my parents. So I decided to have a really small gathering of under 50 people, of just close friends and family. There are so many aspects involved, and when it comes to an Indian wedding, it is so easy to overspend and bloat the budget to basically no limit. But at the same time, there are certain aspects of the wedding that you may want to prioritize, where you may want to have a little bit of wiggle room. For me, it was to have a good photographer, because I really wanted to capture the moments, the memories, especially with the older generations. And food was also one of the major things for me, because I wanted everybody to have a good time, eat a lot of food, try maybe some new cuisines that they have not, especially because food is such a big part of our culture and weddings. And the third thing was our outfits. Since we did not have that in our civil ceremony, I wanted both Ashwin and I to have good outfits, look good, feel good, and all that. But you can have any priority. You can focus on the venue, the location, you can focus on the hospitality more for your guests, you can have dance performances. I would suggest having a few things where you would want to either splurge or have at least a little bit of wiggle room so that at the end of the day, even though you're being budget-minded, you're also feeling good about having a celebration of your love and your marriage. I will talk more about the photography, food, and location later in the video, but let's get into the most important aspect of wedding, which is outfits. The first thing that I would recommend you do is browse all the departmental bridal stores like Purnia's, Aza, Ogan, because there are so many new upcoming designers that we may not be aware of if we individually look for them. And also it gives you an idea of how many and what all designers there are that fit your budget and whose styles and designs resonate with you as a bride or a groom. They have both collection for women and men, so it's very easy to land on that page and look for outfits for all the occasions for both you and your partner. So that's what I did for the first few months. That really helped me curate a list of designers that I was interested in. The second thing was, where do I go to shop? Now, my wedding was in Siliguri and I'm originally from Ranchi. Both those places don't really have designer showrooms. The designers have their showrooms in pretty much all the metropolitan cities, but I went to Delhi because of the convenience and the kind of information that's available with respect to where to shop. Also because there are a variety of options like Chandni Chowk, Shahpur Jat, and of course the designer showrooms. So a lot of options with respect to budget basically. I would also recommend staying in that city where you are shopping at least for 5 days to a week and give 1 day per neighborhood. You do not want to burn out yourself because trust me, when you're trying on the heavy lehengas, and a lot of the times a lot of the things may not look good, and that really creates a lot of pressure on you. So having at least 5 days to a week really help you navigate through all the neighborhoods and all the shops that there exist. I would also recommend staying closer to the area you intend on shopping from. I stayed in Saket, which is very close to Mehrauli and Dhanmil, where I had intended to shop, and it helped me and saved so much time in Delhi traffic. So I highly recommend doing that as well. Some of the things that I would want you to know when you go for bridal shopping is, first of all, have an open mind. I wanted to be a traditional red lehenga bride, but the moment I tried my first red lehenga, it did not really look good on me. So I realized that I need to have an open mind when it comes to the color, fabric, designers, etc. Also, there are so many shades of each color, red, orange, golden, that you never really know which one looks the best on you. So just having an open mind with respect to colors and fabric really helps you with the shopping process. The second thing that I want you to know is, very few designers and stores allow you to click pictures, even though you're trying and if you have all the intention of buying a particular piece. So it's very hard and inconvenient for you as a customer. You have to kind of make the decision when you're in the store. I wanted to have a few pictures and then compare at home and see which one I really like, because you may change your mind in a day or two. But that was very difficult to do because none of the stores were allowing except for Anita Dongre, Sabyasachi, and some of the high-end designers. Some designers did not allow me to take my phones inside the trial room as well. Now I understand why they would do that and where they're coming from, but it does definitely create a little bit of an inconvenience for you as a bride or a groom. If you want to, make a decision, send it to someone. All you can do is a video call, but having someone from your family who can take a look at you when you're trying clothes also helps. But if you intend on clicking pictures and sending it to someone for them to also help you out, it's probably not gonna be possible unless you want to be a little stealthy about it. And also, every store has different lighting, so a lot of the time certain things can look good in that particular lighting. I would highly recommend going around the store, seeing yourself in different lighting as well, because again, you're not able to click pictures, just so that you can make your decision much informed. The next thing that I would recommend that may not be as convenient, but I highly recommend it, I did it as well, is carrying your jewelry. If the jewelry is not as expensive, it's definitely not a problem, but I recommend if you're going to the designer stores to carry jewelry with you, because it really helps you with making the decision. A lot of the times we don't really realize a gold jewelry could look good with a certain color and a diamond could look good with a certain color, but I carried mine at least to all the designer stores that I went to, and it helped me so much in narrowing down the pieces that would look good on me and would complement my overall look. So again, if that's possible for you, if you have a good security, like if you're traveling by car or if you have some sort of help with you, I would recommend you doing that. If not, you can also ask for jewelry. A lot of the stores like Anita Dongre and Sabyasachi also sell their own jewelry, so you can try it definitely with a similar piece that you may have or you may be intending on buying. So something to keep in mind as well. Also, some of the stores do require appointments so that you get the full attention that you deserve and need. So make sure to connect with the designer, and generally they are pretty responsive over WhatsApp or other means of communication. Making an appointment really helps with the process. Also, I would highly recommend dealing with just one sales associate during your entire shopping process, because there could be a lack of communication and that could really mess up the measurements or any additional requests that you may have. I got my Sangeet Lehenga from Anita Dongre, and I had a request of an extra hook for my blouse in case I lose or gain weight, but that did not happen because the day I was billing my lehenga, my sales associate was on a holiday, so there was a lack of communication, and then I ended up with a lehenga where I did not have the hook and it was pretty loose on me. So highly recommend dealing with just one sales associate. Now, the most important thing, if I can recommend, and a mistake that I did, was not having a fitting at least 10 to 15 days before your wedding. I was planning my entire wedding mostly by myself, so I did not have time to go to Delhi once again and get my final fitting. But because of that, most of my clothing that came out were not very well fitted. Now again, I mean, I can blame the designer because they did take my measurements and my measurements did not change, especially for my wedding lehenga, which I'll talk to you about in just a moment. But I would highly recommend, if it's possible and convenient for you, to go to the store at least 10 to 15 days before your event, or maybe even 20 days, so that you have your final measurements, and that way you'll have the best fitted clothing. Coming back to my story, now the reason why I am telling you this is because you can know that this also happens even though you pay exorbitant amount of money for clothing. I got my Sangeet Lehenga, as I mentioned, from Anita Dongre, and it was pretty smooth of a process. It was the first lehenga that I tried ever, and it looked good on me. My mother and aunt both agreed, and it also complemented the jewelry that I intended on wearing. So we got this green lehenga. You can see pictures somewhere on the screen. I would compliment them for delivering it on time, on exactly the date that they had promised. However, the lehenga did come out a little loose, but they were again very quick to communicate with me, get on a video call with me and tell me how to tie it in a certain way that it looks fine. However, the blouse could not be fixed. The way they stitch their blouse, being the designers that they are, is pretty complicated for you to take to a local tailor and get it fixed, unless you really trust someone with something like this. So for me, it was not fixable, and I ended up wearing a pretty loose blouse. Lehenga was somehow manageable, but again, it was not the best fitting. With my wedding lehenga, I got it from Purnia's, thinking that I will have double assurance in a way, because it is a departmental store, but they basically facilitate the sale of a piece from a designer. I got my wedding lehenga, which was red in color. It was from a Kolkata-based designer called Pallavi Poddar. And not only was the delivery a couple of days late, I had communicated it to them that I will not have access to tailors. I will not be able to come for the last moment fitting. So I want it to be exactly this size, and I tried my best to not lose or gain weight so that I can fit in all the clothes properly. But when the lehenga came, the blouse was so loose and not at all well tailored. One of the sleeves also had a bit of crease, and there was this small of a motif that was missing. And although it was such a small detail, it made a lot of difference in my eyes because that was not the piece I wanted.
So I've spoken to the sales associate, and as you can see, the blouse is this loose, and in a way this ruins the blouse for me because the blouse was the selling point for me, and because of this particular design it was giving an illusion of broad shoulders, which I really liked about this. But I don't know if that's the case any longer, and it's so loose and poorly made that you can see a lot of creases on this side, which was not the case. The blouse also is a bit shorter than what I had tried, just a few inches, but that makes a lot of difference. And so far they have just suggested to go to a local tailor and get it fixed somehow. I don't know any tailor, let alone trust anyone with such an expensive and my wedding lehenga in such a short span of time. And this makes me really angry, infuriated, nervous, sad, all those emotions.
And I can be very petty when it comes to something like this, where I have paid a lot of money for an important day like such, and if I don't get what I paid for or what was agreed upon. So I was furious. I tried reaching out to them, and I tried reaching out to even the designer because I was in Siliguri. The designer was Kolkata based, so it was very easy to get it fixed within 3 to 4 days. But I felt like both Purnia and the designer kind of were oscillating the accountability. The designer absolutely refused to coordinate or even communicate with me. They just told me that I should go to Purnia's. And the reason why I reached out to the designer was to eliminate the third party and get it done, because at that time my objective was to get it fixed as soon as possible. And if I would go through a third party, it would just take a couple of days longer for me. So this was my story. I just want you to know so that you are wary and aware that something like this could also happen. And this is the reason why I would recommend having a last fitting that's just a few days or a week before your wedding day. Also, something to keep in mind is have the tailor of the store take your measurements. When I went to Anita Dongre, a tailor came in and took all my measurements, and the precision was something to watch out for. The way he was taking my measurement gave me that confidence that my lehenga would turn out to be perfect. And for the most part, it did. However, with the other lehenga, I could tell when my measurements were being taken that this may not come out perfectly. My husband was lucky, so he did not have any problems with his measurements. We got his clothing from Contrast by Parth for the wedding. They are one of the best designers and budget friendly when it comes to groom pieces. And his Sangeet kurta pajama was from a brand called Buhame. Both of these stores are in Dhanmil, and the team was extremely warm. The salespeople were really amazing, very helpful, and we had absolutely no problem with the delivery as well. The box that his wedding kurta came in was all torn and everything, not in the best of condition, but I would still give it a pass because the clothing was pretty fine. One last thing that I would also recommend as a bride is, if you want to save money, do not get the second dupatta from the designer because it ends up costing you way more. Your local bazaar or Chandni Chowk has some amazing, beautiful dupattas that you can get starting from 3,000 to 10,000, and it does not ruin your looks. So something to keep in mind if you want to have a little bit of budget-friendly aspect in your outfit as well. For haldi, I would recommend going to a local place because it basically gets ruined with all the haldi stains. But if you want to keep it and you want to splurge, up to you. I just went to a local boutique in Siliguri and got myself a salwar kameez that I wore for my haldi, and it was not the best look in my opinion, but it was still fine. I was okay with that. I had two other looks, one for mehendi and the other one for puja. For the puja ceremony, I wore an orange patola sari that I got from Tanera, which is a Tata sari brand. And for the mehendi, I actually repurposed my mother's bridal lehenga with a different blouse and some jewelry that I borrowed from my Mausi. So this was all of my wedding looks and kind of a deconstruction of that. With respect to jewelry, I mostly wore gold and diamond jewelry. I did not know where to get good imitation jewelry from, so I would not have a lot of recommendations there. However, when I was in Dhanmil, I did check out Preeti Mohan's collection and it did look pretty good. I only got one headpiece from Sadar Bazaar, but I would not recommend it because it broke the next day. All the pearls were coming out and I had to stick it using Fevikwik for the bridal look, so I don't really recommend it. Also, for smaller pieces, you can go to designers like Preeti Mohan because I felt like the price difference was not a lot for the quality that you may get in a branded jewelry. Some of the neighborhoods that I would recommend checking out if you are gonna be shopping in Delhi is Mehrauli, where you have designers like Sabyasachi, Anita Dogre, Tarun Tehliani, Manish Malhotra, Ghazal Gupta, Riddhi Mehra. The second neighborhood that I would recommend is Dhanmil. There you have designers like Jigar Mali and Seema Gujral, also some great designers for menswear as well. There is South Extension also, where you have shops like Azza and Kalki. Also Shahpur Jat, if your budget is somewhere around 1 to 1.5 lakhs. You have Preeti Mohan's another store there. You have Suhana Jewels. You have several new and less expensive designers. So if you want to shop for some of the pre-wedding festivities, you can definitely check out that neighborhood as well. And of course, there's Chani Chowk, where you have all these famous shops like Sudhir Bhai, and not sure if Asiana Couture is also there, but you can check it out for yourself. Alright guys, if you had any takeaway from this video so far, please consider subscribing to my channel and like this video for the algorithm. Also, if you have anything to add or if you have any questions so far, please comment down below so that I can get back to you. Alright, let's get into the video. Now let's talk about location and venue. So much of your decor, how your photography is gonna turn out, how comfortable your guests and you of course are gonna be depends on this. Some considerations that I would have is what's the temperature and weather like, because if it's too hot or cold, it limits you to have an outdoor setup. Also kind of governs what outfits you can wear because the outfits are so heavy and elaborate. Also the comfort of your guests and yourself kind of depends on what the weather is gonna be like. Also, if you're booking a location that attracts a lot of tourists or people during that time of the year, you may have to book way in advance or be prepared to have a little bit of wiggle room with respect to the budget, because it can cost way more if a lot of people are traveling to that destination in and around that time. This is the first thing that you should be booking about 8 to 12 months in advance, because these things get booked pretty early on. I had 30 to 40 people in total, and let me tell you, having a small wedding can be very challenging in its own way. Booking any vendor or venue becomes challenging because they operate on a profit margin based on the number of guests that are going to be coming. Most of the time, the food comes with the venue. So because they won't be able to meet their profit margin with a small number of people, oftentimes they are not convinced enough to give you the venue. So that is one of the struggles that we had. So my family family initially wanted to host the wedding at this villa that is on top of the Kurseong Hills, but we realized a few things with that particular venue. The first thing is, because it would get a little chilly at night, it was very difficult to have an outdoor setup. Also, because it's on top of a hill, everything would cost more, whether it's your makeup artist or decor, photographers, everything costs more just because of a few kilometers of commute. That was an unnecessary increase in the budget that I did not want. And the third thing was the way the villa was decorated and the interiors were done. The management had put in a lot of restrictions and limitations with respect to how we could decorate it and how we could have our events. So because of all of this, we had to let go of that venue. We even tried some of the other hotels in that area, but no one was willing to give us a nice venue given the number of people that were gonna be showing up. So we decided to move the location to the city of Siliguri, and thankfully we had one hotel that agreed with the number of people we had. We definitely had to pay more to meet the profit margin, but that is something that you have to do even though you have less number of people coming in. When it comes to the venue and location, if you are doing the negotiation, highly recommend negotiating the price. But if you're not able to bring the price down, I would recommend negotiating, putting more items on the menu or providing for some seating. There are so many aspects that the venue takes care of. And if you're not able to negotiate with the actual amount, you may be able to negotiate a little add-ons which can make your overall experience a little better. Now, let's talk about music license. I feel like nobody talked about this. This is an information nobody gives, nobody talks about, and there's no way around it. You need to get a music license if you're having your wedding at a banquet hall or a hotel. Okay, a quick disclaimer that this is not legal advice and I'm not your lawyer, but if you play music that is from a Bollywood movie or by an artist, you need to pay royalty, and there are certain institutions that you have to connect with and pay them that fee so that they allow you to basically play the song of your choice during the ceremonies. However, there is a lot of confusion around it because there have been a few judgments that say that it is allowed without the fee. But from my understanding, it is only limited to the religious practice of it all. It did not apply to occasions like Sangeet or you playing a Bollywood song when you are, entering as a bride or a groom. Most of the hotels, from my experience, asked me to get it. They would not do it for you. So that is also something that you have to keep in mind and budget for and plan for. Now let's talk about photographers. This is also one of the things that needs to be booked at least 8 to 10 months in advance because they get booked so early. I would highly recommend booking someone in the city you're having your ceremonies in or the closest big city if you don't have a lot of options, because let me tell you, all the logistic expenses that you have on top of the fees that you will be paying them will have to be covered by you, and they generally send a team of 6 to 8 people, so it ends up costing a lot. Or if you have not budgeted for a few extra people with respect to accommodation or food, it may be a surprise expense. The next thing that I would recommend is to not pay full amount unless you have gotten all the deliverables. I would suggest at least keeping 25 to 30% of the total payment to be paid after they have delivered everything that you had agreed upon, because I recently did a Q&A on my Instagram and I also am personally dealing with that. The photographers may ghost you after the ceremonies. So having at least 25 to 30% of amount to be paid or due after the final delivery is done, you have some assurance. Otherwise, it becomes extremely stressful to follow up, and especially if you don't reside in India or if you don't have someone in the city that they operate in, to keep following up, pursuing them for months, and you're not getting what you paid for. And photographers, don't come at me because I am speaking speaking from my experience, had I paid the full amount, I would be much more stressed right now. It's been 6 months and I have not gotten all the deliverables, and a lot of people that I spoke to had similar issues. The next thing, and one of the most important things with respect to booking a photographer, is check their work on IG or YouTube, because that gives you an understanding of the end product that you can expect, whether it resonates with the kind of video you want or photographs you want. And the next thing that I would recommend is asking them if they have specific experiences with your culture. I am from Jharkhand and there are certain specific rituals that happen in my culture. So a photographer that knows about those rituals, it makes it much more easier for them to know what to capture, what are the important moments, what are some of the memories that you may want to have. So having that understanding of your culture and specific rituals really help with having a better result. Some of the things that I would recommend you talk to your photographer about is all the itinerary of the event, so that they have a good understanding of how the event is going to progress, and conveying all the timings and sticking to it. If they know of the timing, they will be there to click the photographs. Also send them all the reference photos early on so that they know the kind of portraits and pictures you want, and give them at least an hour before each event for them to click portrait. Once the event starts, you get so busy that you have no time to get your portraits done. And if you had a wedding like mine, I was rushing between 2-3 events. It's very difficult to get your portraits done, and then later you regret, why did I not give them enough time? Some of the red flags that while booking for photographer or any of your vendors that you should look out for is how responsive they are to your texts and what is their communication like. Are they leaving you on red for multiple days? Because that will happen later as well. Once you have paid the amount and they continue to be not responsive, it really creates a lot of frustration and stress and anxiety about the deliverables. The second red flag is not having an Instagram or YouTube or any social media page where you can see their work, because I feel like no matter what they promise, if you don't have any past work to refer to, you may not really know what they will deliver. So with respect to the decor, photographer, makeup artist, all these vendors, they should have a social platform to show you what past work they have done, if there are any client testimonials, and then again for you to decide whether that resonates with you or not. The third red flag that I would look out for is them imposing their vision rather than understanding your vision. It's your wedding and don't be apologetic about it. I'm not asking you to become a bridezilla or a groomzilla, but it's your wedding, it's your special day. There may have been a vision that you had since you were a little girl or a little boy, so don't really compromise on that. Now let's talk about makeup artists. Some of the things to do is, first of all, look at their work on Instagram or social platform. Check if they have done a similar look that you want, whether it's a light makeup or a really glam look. I'll tell you my story. When I was getting my makeup done for Sangeet, I wanted a green, shimmery, bold eye and a balanced face around that. But when I saw the first look of that makeup, I had a panic attack because my lips were lined with dark brown and filled with maroon, and I had a bold green eyeliner instead of an eyeshadow. And when I saw that, I did not know what to do because I could not go out looking like that. It was way too bold and none of it made sense. None of it was looking good. The makeup artist had experience basically in soft glams. So even though she probably is good at her work, the way the look I wanted, she was not able to deliver it. And you don't have a lot of time when you're getting your makeup done and you have one event after the other to do a lot of changes and wipe it all and then sit for another look. So that's why I recommend checking on Instagram their past work of similar makeup look. But having said that, it also depends on the skills of a makeup artist. I'm talking about artists that's available in Siliguri, something that I experienced and something that you can learn from. Also recommend booking makeup artists at least 6 to 8 months in advance because they also get booked pretty early. Whoever I contacted, they were booked already, and this was 8 months before the wedding date. So I had to go with whoever was available. I would highly recommend checking out their hair and draping skills if you don't have a separate person booked for it. Generally, makeup artists take care of all three aspects of makeup, hair and draping, especially if you're going for budget-friendly options. My hair was not done the way I wanted it or the pictures that I had shown. Also, my draping was done in such a way that on the wedding day, my secondary dupatta was all over the place. The jewelry placement was also not done very properly and the way I wanted. So I would highly recommend having a bridesmaid or anyone to look out for your hair, draping, jewelry placement, and of course the makeup. I would also highly recommend asking the makeup artist about their experiences with your specific needs like discoloration or texture. The next thing that I would recommend is having a calming oil or a calming scent around yourself and having at least 2 hours before each wedding to get your makeup and draping and everything ready, because you don't want to rush that. At the end of the day, you really want to look good, feel good, get your pictures done. So it is very important to give that time to that professional as well so that they can deliver the best work. Have some Palo Santo or a calming scent around yourself and just think of it as a pampering session that you're getting between the events. With makeup artists, I highly recommend negotiating at least one look of your mom. A lot of makeup artists offer it, but if they don't, negotiate it with your makeup artist to have her makeup done at least for one of the events or one of the main events so that she also is able to look good. Now let's talk about event and decor. There are so many branches under the decor that I highly recommend having an event planner. Even if you are going for a budget-friendly wedding, it is very important to delegate, especially something like decor, because it has seating, it has flowers, it has stage, it has so many things that if you want to take care of each aspect, it's gonna take a lot of time and a lot of back and forth with so many vendors that at the end of the day, it becomes very stressful. I wanted to keep my wedding very budget friendly, so I initially tried negotiating and reaching out to individual vendors. It becomes too much for you to handle. So I highly recommend having an event planner that takes care of the flowers, seating, music, and everything around this for those days. Now, once you have an event planner, these are some of the things that I would do to make my life easier. The first thing I would do is create a color and a mood board so that they know what your vision is like. The second thing that I would do is ask for realistic deliverables. The vendors want the business and they may agree on something that they may not be able to deliver. Trust me, on the day of your wedding, the last thing you want is an underwhelming decor and be upset about it. So having this conversation and discussing very realistic really helps with setting expectations from both ends. The next thing I would recommend is be very clear and firm about the budget that you have for the decor and the flowers. It is very easy to expand and bloat the budget when it comes to these things. If you have a budget and you don't have a wiggle room with respect to this particular aspect, do not budge. Be very clear about it and request them to deliver your vision in your budget rather than imposing a particular vision at a particular budget that you were not initially okay with. Also, I recommend asking for a cost breakdown if you are negotiating between multiple vendors, because that really gives you an idea of how much each thing would cost and who is charging you more and who is giving you a better rate. The next most important thing when it comes to the decor is lighting. Do not ignore lighting, guys, because let me tell you, how your pictures turn out depends so much on the lighting. If you have mediocre lighting, no matter how good the decor is, the pictures will not turn out. Even the decor would not look as good. A lot of the time this gets overlooked, but I'm telling you from experience, have good lighting. Now, a little bit about how I organized my wedding. I am originally from Jharkhand and there are traditional rituals that we wanted to have. So my pre-wedding kicked off with a Mehendi evening soiree, followed by dinner where I got my Mehendi done. Also guys, with respect to the Mehendi walas, please have a very clear communication about the designs that you want to have, how long is it gonna take, and how many people are gonna do your Mehendi. My Mehendi took 5 to 6 hours and the Mehendi wala refused to draw the design that we had agreed upon because I was dealing with so many things at the point and I was so stressed out that when that happened, I lost it and I was crying. And it was such an upsetting start of the pre-wedding festivities. Once I cried, he at least agreed to look at it, to refer it, but it was nowhere close to the design that I had wanted and we had agreed upon the amount based on the design. I don't know what could have I done differently to avoid this, so I don't have a solution here, but again, a mistake that you may want to learn from. On that day, in my mind, I was oscillating between it's just a Mehendi, it is okay, it's not that big a deal, to oh my god, this is my wedding Mehendi and I'm never gonna get it done this way and this man is ruining it. So to avoid being upset and crying on your Mehendi for this reason and not because you're overwhelmed with your family being around and happiness, I would suggest having a clear conversation about the design. Having at least 2 to 3 people do your Mehendi simultaneously really helps with the timing because it does take a lot of time and precision. So coming back to how my event were, my first event, as I said, was a Mehendi soiree followed by dinner. Then the next morning, it started with a puja where I wore the patola sari that I talked about. And in the afternoon, we had a matkod marwa, which is basically performed by my mother and the women of the family. A little after the matkod, we had haldi ceremony, and right after that, we had sangeet. And on the third day, we had our wedding, and we have our fairas in midnight, so it goes on till 3 or 4 in the morning. So this is what the events pretty much looked like. For the invites, since it was such a small 30 to 40 people wedding, I did not want to spend any money on sending fancy invites. I did a DIY here. I went on Canva and I did not even have a paid version. I knew that I really like floral and Mughal motifs kind of designs, so I tried finding similar card on Canva and then designed it by myself. I'll put somewhere on the screen how my wedding card looked like. All I knew is I wanted to have some floral Mughal motifs and also a reflection of the theme of that particular event being reflected on that page. So having all this in my mind, I created the wedding card. If you want a dedicated video on how I did it, I could create a short video. Let me know in the comments below. But this is pretty much all about wedding planning, some of my mistakes that you can learn from, some of the tips that you can use when you're negotiating with a vendor. I do have some closing thoughts. I would highly recommend not getting any new treatment done at least 1 month before the wedding because you may not know about how it would react on your skin. I did not know much about any med spas in Siliguri, so I ended up not getting anything. I pretty much was just applying some honey on my face and it did well. I'm not suggesting that you do, but that's what I relied upon. I got my nails, pedicure, massage, waxing and eyebrow done just 2 days before the start of the first event. So something to keep in mind if you're booking for a pampering session, it definitely does help when you are taking care of yourself. Now guys, I want to say that whatever I have said in this video is based on my personal experiences. I don't want to discourage you or tell you what you should do with your wedding. It is your wedding, celebrate it however you want, whether you want an extravagant one or a small one, whatever makes you happy. Also, if you are a wedding vendor, it is not a complaint to make you feel bad, it's just my own personal experiences. Also guys, during the time of this entire planning, you may have a lot of disagreements with your parents, your partner, your family members, and know that it's okay. You're not being a brat, you're not being ungrateful, but also they are not being unreasonable. Everybody is coming from their own places, their own understanding. You may not know, but this is so common between all of us. Also, some things may still go wrong even though you have planned for it all, and it's okay guys. At the end of the day, it was your big day. Again, if you are a 2025 bride or groom, or if you have your wedding coming anytime soon, a huge congratulations to you. Welcome to the other side of being married. It's a lot of fun, and wish you the best. Thank you so much for joining in and watching this video. Hope this video helped you. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I live in Toronto and I usually post lifestyle vlogs, food content. So if that resonates with you, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you've already had your wedding and if you have anything to add to whatever I said, please comment below and help others out, and like the video for the algorithm. I will really truly appreciate it. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.